All right, let's just dive right in. Look, we've all been there, right? You're staring at this absolute mountain of raw security scan data. Maybe it's for the OCP, maybe it's a real-world gig. You know the answer is somewhere in that mess, but how do you turn it into a clear, actionable plan when you're under pressure? That's the million-dollar question. So today, we're going to break down a workflow that does just that, turns all that chaos into pure clarity.
I mean, it's such a frustrating feeling, isn't it? You've done all the work, you collected the data, you ran the scans, but then you come back the next day, you open your notes, and you feel like, well, like an archaeologist, just digging through your own digital ruins trying to figure out what you were even thinking. The very system that was supposed to help you is now the thing you're lost.
And this, right here, this quote just nails the feeling perfectly. It's the core of the problem, that sense of analysis paralysis. You've got all this information, you've got terminal output for days, but it's just not translating into any kind of forward momentum. You know, it's the huge difference between just having data and actually having a decision.
So there's a name for this problem, and it's perfect. The note-taking landfill. Seriously, this is where good intentions go to die. It's just a jumbled collection of copy-pasted output, random thoughts, unverified junk, and it's so disorganized that it actually starts working against you. It slows you down instead of speeding you up. The author of this system tells this story about opening their notes one morning and feeling that cold little drop in their stomach. And why? Because they couldn't tell what was real, what they'd actually validated versus what they'd just seen in a scan. Their notes had become this useless collection of digital noise, forcing them to redo work, and even worse, making them lose trust in their own system.
So, what's the fix? Well, it's a mental shift, and it is a crucial one. You have to stop thinking of your notes as some kind of scrapbook where you just collect stuff. Instead, you need to start treating them like a decision surface. Think of it like a one-page cockpit for a pilot. It gives you exactly what you need to see right now to make the next move safely and efficiently.
And this chart just lays it all out. On the left, you've got the landfill, raw output, endless scrolling, mixed up evidence, and just rereading on autopilot. But on the right, you have the decision surface, a summary you can actually skim, clear hypotheses, evidence that's neatly linked, and a list of your very next actions. I mean, the difference is just night and day, isn't it? This right here should be your guiding principle. You have to write your notes for the future you, the tired, under pressure, maybe slightly panicked version of you. And if that person can't look at a note and grasp the state of a host in seconds without having to do what the author calls scroll archaeology, then the note has failed. Skimmability. It's not a nice to have, it's the whole point.
Okay, let's get practical. What does this decision surface actually look like? Well, it's called the minimum viable page, and it's built on 5 absolutely essential blocks. The key here is to keep it small and intentional, because the second it turns into a novel, you're just going to stop reading it.
So here they are, the 5 blocks. First, identity. Just the basics. Who is this machine? IP, hostname, OS. Simple. Second, ports at a glance. A clean, tight table, not a 20-page dump from Nmap. Third, service queues. Little interesting details, auth hints from banners, that kind of thing. Fourth, attack paths. A couple of your best, testable ideas. And finally, and this is probably the most important part, next commands, a tiny little queue that tells you exactly what to do next. No thinking required.
Now let's be super clear about attack paths. This isn't about writing an exploit cookbook, okay? In an authorized ethical environment like a lab, these are just your hypotheses. They're short, testable statements. Something like, okay, SMB is open, so I'm going to check for signing and enumerate shares. It just frames your thinking and keeps you focused and professional. Now you might be thinking, hey, can't I just automate all of this? And yeah, you can, to a point. The philosophy here is just brilliant. Let automation handle the boring stuff. Let a script fill in the IP address and the ports table. But the intent, your hypotheses, your next commands, that has to be handwritten. That's the human part. That's where the real thinking happens.
Okay, so we've got the structure of our perfect note, but how do we actually create it consistently? This is where the workflow comes in. It takes you from a raw Nmap XML file all the way to a reliable, repeatable process. And that's what's so powerful. This system works even on your worst day.
And the workflow itself is beautifully simple. 1. Export and gather up your scan files. 2. Parse them into a consistent format. 3. Generate that basic note skeleton. 4. And this is the human part. Hypothesize. Add those attack paths. 5. Link out to your evidence and create that tiny action queue.
And 6, when you circle back, you retest using a delta log, which we'll talk about in just a sec.
So, this next part requires some discipline. To keep that main host note clean and skimmable, you have got to resist the urge to just dump raw output and screenshots into it. It's so tempting, I know, but instead, create a separate evidence note and just link to it. Your main note should read like an executive briefing, not a court transcript. Remember the rule? Link, don't dump.
So why are we doing all this? What's the real payoff here? Well, it brings us right back to that initial frustration. The payoff is that you stop repeating yourself. This whole disciplined system saves you from that soul-crushing cycle of rescanning, rereading, and revalidating stuff you've already looked at.
And here is the promise. With a well-structured, one-page snapshot, your future self should be able to open that note and understand the complete state of a host in 15 seconds. Think about that. 15 seconds, not 15 minutes of digging through 15 different browser tabs and terminal windows. That is the kind of efficiency that makes all the difference.
Now, to help you get there, here are 4 super common mistakes you want to avoid. We've already hammered on the first one, dumping raw output. The others are just as critical. Don't mix multiple hosts in one note, ever. One host, one note. Develop a retest discipline. And please, for the love of all that is holy, put the IP address first in your note titles so you can actually find things later.
Okay, so let's properly define that retest delta log. This isn't just rerunning your scans. The author calls that self-soothing, which I think is hilarious and true. A delta log is a specific section you add to your note where you only log what's different since last time. A new port, a changed service version, a new file. This is what turns retesting from a repetitive chore into actual, measurable progress.
So how do you get started? Simple. Here's a 10-minute action plan you can do right now. Open Obsidian or whatever you use and create one single template note with those 5 blocks. Then, go find a recent scan and apply that template to 3 of the hosts. For each one, force yourself to add 2 hypotheses and a 3-item action queue. Then, tomorrow, pick one of them and retest it using that delta log. That's it. You're off and running.
This quote is just fantastic, and it really gets to the final key idea here. That tiny little next commands queue. It's everything. It's not just a to-do list. It is the bridge that takes you from passively having information to actively making progress. Without it, you're really just admiring the data.
And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. What if, at the end of the day, it's really that simple? Forget all the fancy templates and automation for just a second. What if the single most valuable habit you could possibly build is to never, ever close a host note without defining at least one next command? That one little rule, that could be the thing that changes everything for you.